For centuries, the House of Rothschild has wielded unprecedented influence, blending familial solidarity with relentless profit-seeking. From modest origins, they rose to shape international finance, wars, and politics, becoming the most formidable banking dynasty of their age. The Rothschild banking dynasty has an unlikely origin, an 18th-century ghetto in Frankfurt, Germany. Like many of his time, Meyer Amschel Rothschild was barred from owning land or farms due to his faith. So he followed his family's path and became a textile trader. The ghetto was not encouraging. Shops spilled heaps of second-hand clothes and soiled household goods into the alley. Frankfurt's Jewish residents were barred from farming, handicrafts, or even dealing in nobler goods like weapons, silk, or fresh fruit. Meyer Rothschild quickly grew discontent with trading textiles and became eager to explore more lucrative ventures. He soon discovered that trading gold coins and antiques offered far higher profit margins. Meyer Rothschild quickly established himself as a shrewd trader and uncovered a brilliant strategy known today as front-running. He worked as a court agent, similar to today's stockbrokers. His main client was Prince William of Hesse-Kassel. Whenever William wanted to purchase gold coins, he would ask Meyer Rothschild to obtain them from the market. Rothschild's method was this: he would first buy the coins using borrowed money, then sell them to Prince William, effectively acting as both buyer and seller. This practice is known as front-running in modern terms. In doing so, he profited twice, once from an 8% commission fee and again from the front-running transaction with Prince William. By 1782, Meyer Rothschild had amassed a colossal fortune and earned the position of investment manager for Prince William's vast wealth. But for Meyer, this was just a beginning. To create a lasting foothold in finance, he needed to evolve into a bank. When traders and court agents accumulated significant wealth, transitioning into banking was a way to gain legitimacy and respectability. This move proved genius for Meyer. By the close of the 1700s, he was the richest man in Frankfurt. Yet, for Meyer Rothschild, it still wasn't enough. He envisioned a legacy beyond wealth, a family dynasty that would stand the test of time, outlasting nations and empires. To me, it's always about what's next, and I think that's what drives most very successful people. It's never about the money. That's just a way of keeping score. It's about achievement, winning the game, and upping the ante. To achieve this, he knew he needed to think bigger than Frankfurt, or even Prussia. To expand, he dispatched 4 of his 5 sons to the great capitals of Europe: Vienna, Naples, Paris, and the jewel of the empire, London. In the early 1800s, Great Britain stood as a global superpower with a vast empire. Its Royal Navy was unmatched, and the Industrial Revolution was transforming it into an economic powerhouse. London, with its robust financial sector centered around the Bank of England, was becoming a global financial hub. Meyer Rothschild had built a thriving bank in Frankfurt, but to ensure the family's long-term prosperity, he needed to expand. His 3rd son, Nathan Rothschild, was sent to London. For Nathan, the pressure was immense. He felt compelled to prove himself equally capable of upholding the family legacy. Nathan was fiercely ambitious and competitive. With the £20,000 his father gave him, he planned to maximize it as quickly as possible by any means necessary. In the early 1800s, London's textile industry was booming. Nathan saw an opportunity to capitalize on this growth while maximizing profits. He managed to create 3 profit streams from a single transaction. According to his own account, I soon found that there were 3 profits: the raw material, the dyeing, and the manufacturing. I said to the manufacturer, I will supply you with material and dye, and you will supply me with manufactured goods. So I got 3 profits instead of 1, and I could sell goods cheaper than anybody. In a short time, I made my £20,000 into £60,000. To ensure consistent revenue, Nathan also ventured into the lucrative realm of smuggling textiles and precious metals. He became, in a word, a smuggler. By 1808, Nathan had earned a reputation as a man who, thanks to superior management, judgment, foresight, and connections, regularly succeeded in getting goods to the continent. Within just a few years, he reported impressive sales of £800,000. With substantial capital, Nathan set his sights on transforming his enterprise into a bank, aiming to build it bigger than his father's in Frankfurt. By 1812, Mayor Amschel Rothschild's health was failing. Knowing death was near, he urged his sons to put family unity above all else. This principle became a cornerstone of the Rothschild dynasty's enduring success. Their strong familial bond and unique business practices are key reasons for their longevity. As the Rothschild sons established their banking houses across Europe, the continent entered an age of protracted wars. Whereas 18th century wars tended to be limited and end in negotiated truces, the wars of the 19th century became increasingly ideological and difficult to stop. Thanks to its sophisticated financial system, the United Kingdom waged 6 major wars in the century without economic collapse. Today, we live in a world dominated by a single superpower, the United States. Yet Britain was the world superpower for over 2 centuries, exerting even more global influence than the US does today. By 1814, the Duke of Wellington was winning battles against Napoleon and planned to take the fight to France. But in France, Wellington realized he needed a massive amount of French coins for expenses. Wellington's campaign was fought at a time of unparalleled fiscal overstretch. In protracted campaigns, it was essential to be able to purchase supplies and to pay troops. Nathan saw a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Meeting this demand could elevate his bank to unprecedented heights. He later made it sound simple. When I was settled in London, the East India Company had £800,000 worth of gold to sell. I went to the sale and bought it all. I knew the Duke of Wellington must have it. The government sent for me and said they must have it. When they got it, they did not know how to get it to Portugal. I undertook all that, and I sent it to France, and that was the best business I ever did. By the mid-1800s, as Europe became a hotbed of war, nations increasingly needed foreign exchange markets. To start a war, you need money. If you lose, you often have to pay reparations. For the House of Rothschild, wars became a profitable business. Their network of banking houses provided a unique advantage. With the modern banking system in its infancy, they could charge fees as high as 8% for currency exchange. But commissions were just a small part of their income. The Rothschilds understood that in finance, information is everything, and speed is king. They were among the earliest successful forex traders. Using private carriers, well-trained horses, and even pigeons, they stayed steps ahead of competitors. Currency speculation became their most profitable business. Profits for the London house kept rolling in, and Nathan Rothschild became the richest man in the world. But even the most powerful financier couldn't defeat the ultimate enemy. On July 28, 1836, the unexpected happened. Nathan Rothschild, the world's wealthiest man, died at 58. This was surprising, as the Rothschilds were known for longevity. His mother was still alive and would live past 90. The Times of London noted, "The death of Nathan Mayer Rothschild is one of the most important events for the city and perhaps for Europe in a long time. No operations comparable to his have existed in Europe to this time." Nathan's death had a huge market impact, but the House of Rothschild lived on. Thanks to their decentralized banking system, the family banks continued to thrive. Now, they needed a new leader. Nathan's youngest brother, James Rothschild in Paris, became the commander-in-chief of the family dynasty. For James, the pressure was immense. While government bonds and war financing remained profitable, growing competition was saturating the field and eating into margins. To bring his family new glory, he needed a new edge. James was markedly less submissive to Nathan's will than the other brothers. He was intellectually and temperamentally Nathan's equal, with the advantage of better schooling. Even in acknowledging Nathan's leadership, James was less than deferential. James soon set his sights on a new, burgeoning industry: railroads. In the early 1800s, Europe witnessed rapid railroad expansion, revolutionizing transportation, fostering industrial growth, and reshaping landscapes. Throughout the 1840s, the Rothschilds financed many railway ventures, reaping substantial profits from commissions and trading railroad bonds and stocks. They were clever with their money, often using other people's capital to reduce their own risk. James played a big part in the French syndicate system of the time. By now, the Rothschilds were more than bankers, but the bank remained the heart of the family business, generating funds invested in high-demand assets: metallurgy, mining, and above all, railways. While Rothschild profits soared, average people struggled. The income disparity between rich and poor remained pronounced. The industrialists of that period were people out to make large fortunes as quickly as possible, even if it meant pressing the envelope of what they had to do. After suffering wartime defeats, by the 1840s, the French government was deep in debt, its economy teetering. The populace grew increasingly resentful of both the government and its financiers. Within days, the Rothschild Bank in France neared collapse. As its head, James was desperate. He turned to his nephew in London, Lionel, Nathan's son, for assistance. The French Revolution of 1848 brought their houses in Vienna and Paris to the brink of insolvency, obliging the others in London to bail them out. By then, the Rothschild banking business had existed for almost 2 generations. For Lionel, bailing out his uncle's branch posed a significant risk and potential loss. However, family unity ranked above all else. His London bank arranged a loan, saving the French bank from collapse. But Lionel also felt compelled to uplift his people. He believed entering government could help eliminate prejudice against Jewish people. Lionel had a lot of money, so he used it to buy press support to help him get elected. By the mid-19th century, most restrictions on British Jews had been lifted. The Commons passed a bill permitting the seating of a Jew. In August 1847, Lionel de Rothschild stood as a liberal candidate for the City of London and was elected. There was a problem. To be fully sworn in, he would have to recite an oath on the Holy Scriptures. Lionel refused, insisting he would swear only on the Old Testament. Becoming part of the government was monumental for the House of Rothschild. As James aged, Lionel gradually assumed the role of family patriarch. But Lionel didn't realize that while the Rothschilds reigned supreme in Europe, a new banking empire was emerging, poised to challenge their dominance. Junius Morgan was a British banker at the merchant firm George Peabody and Company. By 1864, upon Peabody's retirement, Junius took control. Junius Morgan always had a gravely mature air. He was the sort of prematurely middle-aged young man old financiers found consoling. He was solemn, businesslike, and always master of his emotions. Junius understood that to play in the big leagues, he needed to venture into government financing. And for a banker in the 1800s, nothing presented more opportunity than wars. In 1867, France tried to purchase Luxembourg from the Netherlands. Prussia, under its notoriously ruthless chancellor Otto von Bismarck, opposed the move, waiting for an opportunity to strike. On July 19, 1870, Napoleon III declared war on Prussia, exactly what Bismarck wanted to further German unification. From the very beginning, Bismarck had a wild temperament. He had these two sides, a clear intellect and tremendous precision. It was the combination of his wildness and his intelligence that drove him. I see him as a raging bull. Having financed wars for a century, the Rothschilds could predict which side would win. They had no faith in France defeating Bismarck and saw no sense in lending to its government. While major houses like Rothschild and Baring avoided France, Junius Morgan saw the opportunity of a lifetime. It didn't matter if France won. What mattered was if it could repay. He understood that even in defeat, France's diversified economy and efficient tax system ensured it could pay back loans. Although French politics was very shaky at the time, the French economy was very diversified, and more importantly, it had a very efficient tax collection system. Through his syndicate, Junius Morgan raised over £10 million for the French army and granted access to purchase American arms. The war ended in a decisive German victory with the 1871 Treaty of Frankfurt. France suffered significant territorial losses, and the German Empire was proclaimed at Versailles. Contrary to Bismarck's prediction, the defeated French did not renege on the loan. Instead, they prepaid the bonds in 1873. Junius Morgan walked away with a fortune. The loan netted him a whopping £1.5 million. This vastly augmented his firm's capital and propelled him into the upper ranks of government financing. The House of Morgan had become a formidable force. While Junius Morgan built his dynasty, the House of Rothschild faced mounting challenges. After James Rothschild's death in 1868, the younger generations became fragmented. To rebuild prestige, they looked beyond Europe, investing heavily overseas in Egypt and Indian railroads. But to recapture past success, they needed a vaster marketplace. As old empires faded, a new one emerged, bigger and more powerful than any before, the United States. From the 1850s to 1870s, America experienced explosive growth through industrialization, westward expansion, and the transcontinental railroad. This era saw the rise of industrial magnates, Cornelius Vanderbilt in railroads, André Carnegie in steel, and John Rockefeller in oil. The story of America isn't just the story of the patriots. The reason the United States is the leading economy in the world is because of entrepreneurs who created entire industries. For years, the Rothschilds underestimated America. But seeing the rise of the House of Morgan in Wall Street, they began pursuing opportunities there. And nothing presents better opportunities when there is blood in the streets.
For America, that day came on May 9, 1893. After decades of a railroad boom, the overexpanded industry collapsed, triggering one of the worst depressions in history, the Panic of 1893. President Grover Cleveland was determined to maintain the gold standard, refusing expansionary fiscal policies. At the time, the British pound, not the US dollar, was the global currency. Cleveland believed maintaining dollar-to-gold convertibility was crucial for US credibility. His government was running dangerously low on gold reserves and called on J. Pierpont Morgan for help. By the late 1800s, Junius Morgan had died in an accident, making J. Pierpont Morgan the head of the House. The federal government was days from depleting its gold. Morgan knew the outcome would be disastrous for the country and his empire. He knew one family had access to the vast amount of gold needed, the House of Rothschilds. For 3 decades, the Rothschilds had strategically invested in gold and silver mining. Many bond issues they handled were linked to countries adopting the gold standard. J.P. Morgan raised $65 million by issuing government bonds and used it to negotiate with the Rothschilds, purchasing 3.5 million ounces of gold for the U.S. Treasury. Banks loved government business because governments reliably paid debts through taxation. The Morgan-Rothschild collaboration made their bond offering highly sought after. The gold bonds sold out in 30 minutes. America entered the world stage as a new empire, a superpower. While the Rothschilds successfully expanded globally by the early 1900s, the old empires of Europe headed for another major showdown. Tensions reached a boiling point due to imperial rivalries, military buildups, and complex alliances. While the path to war threatened catastrophe, the Rothschilds saw opportunity. The head of the London Bank, Natty Rothschild, advocated for British naval expansion. European countries began spending more on militaries, and they needed money.
What the Rothschilds didn't realize was that the coming war would be more brutal and deadly than any before. Following the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, Europe plunged into war. Serbians are saying, "We don't want to be ruled by the Austro-Hungarian Empire." That's the trigger that begins the whole conflict. This war featured trench warfare and new weaponry, resulting in an estimated 10 million military and 7 million civilian deaths. For the first time, Rothschild family members aligned with opposing sides. Though they survived and profited from World War I financing, their scale was overshadowed by the rising American dynasty, the House of Morgan, now led by Jack Morgan. The Morgan Bank served as the key U.S. financier during the war, raising funds through bonds and extending crucial loans to allies. In 1935, the Jewish Chronicle suggested, with a hint of relief, that the Rothschilds' heyday was waning. The most intellectually gifted of the next generation turned his back on the family business. After World War I, the House of Rothschild was in disarray. Different banking divisions pursued separate goals, integrating more into their host countries. Simultaneously, Europe saw a surge in anti-Semitic sentiment. The Rothschilds, as prominent Jewish bankers, faced heightened scrutiny. In Germany, after its defeat, the nation endured a severe economic downturn. A new leader harnessed public anger and rose to chancellor. His rise spelled trouble for the Rothschilds, especially their German branches. In 1939, just 21 years after World War I, the biggest war in human history erupted. By spring 1940, Hitler secured victory after victory. Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, and Belgium fell. Europe made a desperate stand in France, but it was no match for German armor. By June, Hitler was in Paris. Britain was the next target. If Hitler conquered Europe, the House of Rothschild faced certain demise. While some Rothschild members joined resistance movements, many fled Europe. When German tanks rolled into Paris in 1940, the French Rothschilds were in grave peril. The older ones managed to escape. They ended up in the United States or England. The family endured significant financial and personal losses as assets were seized.
As the dynasty fragmented, N.M. Rothschild and Sons of London took on the challenge of rebuilding. Their core advantage remained government financing, a long-standing strategy. They believed that strong relationships with powerful governments would ensure business success. Rather than expand, Rothschild preserved its model as a private club, financing elites while evading public scrutiny. By the 1970s, a future media mogul sought N.M. Rothschild's assistance, Robert Maxwell. After serving in World War II and British intelligence, Maxwell entered publishing, acquiring companies like Pergamon Press. He had a traumatic beginning. Most of his family were wiped out in the Holocaust. Not being poor became an absolute imperative. To expand his empire, he needed vast sums of money. But trouble brewed inside N.M. Rothschild. Lord Victor Rothschild and his son Jacob were at odds with their cousin, Sir Evelyn de Rothschild. The banking world was changing rapidly, with megabanks emerging and new financial instruments like derivatives appearing. Jacob believed the bank must adapt and pursue aggressive expansion. Sir Evelyn, who led N.M. Rothschild, asserted that modernizing ownership risked losing absolute family control. He insisted the bank must remain wholly owned by Rothschilds, even at short-term cost. Soon, family drama became their least of their concerns. A massive scandal erupted. The millionaire newspaper publisher Robert Maxwell is dead. He disappeared overboard from his private yacht early this morning. In the early 1990s, it was revealed Maxwell had misappropriated hundreds of millions from employee pension funds to sustain his businesses and lifestyle. I feel that the line between suicide and an accident is less clear-cut than we tend to assume. His mysterious death in 1991 spurred investigations into his misdeeds. While Rothschild involvement in Maxwell's demise remains unclear, the event blemished their reputation. For Sir Evelyn, it reaffirmed the need for discretion and privacy. But N.M. Rothschild was just the tip of the extensive Rothschild legacy. By 2023, the family had diversified far beyond traditional banking into investment banking, wealth management, private equity, and philanthropy. The original banks in Paris, Frankfurt, Vienna, London, and Naples adapted to the new financial landscape. While banking remains central, their influence now permeates a wider range of services. Throughout history, the Rothschild family never hesitated to make money, but when it came to maintaining their family legacy, they were willing to let go of opportunities. This kind of long-term view is both respected and formidable.